He's the boy of steel, or the Metropolis Kid, but it's time to talk about Connor Kent, aka Superboy, because his geek history lesson is now in session. Hello and welcome to Geek History Lesson. I am Jason, sometimes Super Inman.
I am Ashley Victoria Robinson. Welcome to your Mind University because you have stumbled onto the podcast where we take one character, construct, or person of steel from popular culture and teach you everything you need to know about them in about an hour. And this week we are talking about Superboy, one of the Superboys.
Yes, we're talking about one of the Superboys. We should make that very clear right now. We are talking about Superboy Kon-El, or Superboy Connor, the 90s Superboy with an earring. And fun fact out there, a lot of you guys requested this episode. We've been wanting to do this episode for a very, very, very long time because I'm a big fan of this character. And some of the TAs, or the students, listeners that have requested this episode are Ray Vital, Alex Bowen, Tanisha...
Alexis Bowen.
Whatever. Alexis Bowen. Tanisha Marshall. Look, the guarantee you get is I'm going to definitely mispronounce your name.
For sure.
Tanisha Marshall. Corey Cannon Chambers, Carl Contagnola. Grod Frankenstein. Vicky Fox Martin. Justin Adkins. At Will66198334. Carlo Sanchez. At Spider_Hawk, Mateus Texerera, Adam Grunther, and at Ryle Kaner.
We love you all.
Yes, thank you so much for requesting. That was hell on earth trying to pronounce your names, everybody. But I'm glad you requested the episode. That's what I have to say to that.
Use your name as your username. That's my hot take.
That's the lesson to learn there. Okay, we are going to hop straight into the Superboy 90s Superboy, Connor Kent Superboy, Kon-El Superboy, 10-cent origin. It's time to fly up and away. Ashley, how do we start off this podcast? What is the 10-cent origin?
Well, the 10-cent origin is, as Jason mentioned, the first part of the podcast where we give you all the basics, who's it's and what's it's about this character in case you go to a Young Justice-themed cocktail party and people are like, who's that Superboy? And you can tell them.
Superboy, this Superboy, is published by DC Comics. His first appearance was in The Adventures of Superman number 500 in June of 1993. He was created by Carl Kessel and Tom Grummett. His alter ego is Kon-El, that's Kon/Connor Kent. He, of course, is a clone that is actually a human Kryptonian hybrid. His team affiliations are Young Justice, the Legion of Superheroes, Superman Family, the Teen Titans, Project Cadmus, the Supermen of America, the White Lantern Corps, and my favorite team, the Ravers. His notable aliases, of course, have been Connor Kent, Carl Crummett, Experiment 13, Superman, and the Boy of Steel. His abilities, of course, are superhuman peak condition. He has superhuman strength. He has superhuman hearing. He has superhuman durability. He has enhanced agility and reflexes. He has invulnerability. He has decelerated aging. He has psionic abilities, including tactile telekinesis. And depending on which story you're reading, he sometimes has freeze breath and heat vision.
Wow.
And sometimes he doesn't.
Ooh.
So, all right. Actually, let's go into the meet cute. What's that?
The meet cute is the part of the podcast where we tell you the first time we meted a character and how cute it was.
So how'd you meet Connor Kent?
I think I first met, the first time I remember being really aware of Connor Kent was when I was quite young, reading some of those early Young Justice comics, like the OG series. But the first time I read him in any sort of ongoing capacity was when Jeff Johns did his Teen Titans run, because he is the super character who is a member of that team, which was the mid-aughts, early mid-aughts, yeah. Connor's not a character I have a lot of affection for, so I haven't read a lot of his stories. Sorry. How about you? Where did you first meet Connor?
I met Connor in his first appearance, The Reign of the Superman! Because I got into comic books around the death of Superman, and when these 4 other Supermen showed up, and they were all in the different titles. Superboy, of course, was in The Adventures of Superman. Cyborg Superman was in Superman. The Last Son of Krypton was in Action Comics, and Steel was in the Superman Man of Steel series, which I don't know whether that's a good thing or bad thing that I remember each one and where they belong. But yeah, I remember at the end of Adventures of Superman 500, they do these little brief snippets, like 2 to 3 pages with each of the new Supermen. And it's this Superboy crawling out of a tunnel and then getting mad when somebody calls him Superboy.
Yeah.
And I've always loved his costume, even though it's like extremely 90s with an earring and a little, leg pouch thing. But I don't know. I've just always loved this character. And for me, he's kind of always been my Superboy.
As opposed to just the young Clark Kent?
Yes. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Clark Kent putting on a costume and being Superboy around Smallville before he becomes Superman.
I am also not fond of that.
Yeah.
But the Silver Age, some people do.
I mean, I'm kind of the opinion, like, I love the John Byrne origin where the first time Superman appears, he saves Lois from a spaceflight and he's dressed in normal clothes, and then she names him Superman.
Yes, yeah.
So that's kind of where I come down on it. So, before we get into the History 101, everybody, we're talking about how much I love Connor Kent's costume. Well, speaking of love, just a brief reminder that Ashley and I have written some books as well, comics to be exact. We have the all-ages Rocket Pack Adventures of Jupiter Jet. We have the middle grade adventures of Science, the Elements of Dark Energy, and my very personal nonfiction novel about my military career and how that connects to superheroes called Super Soldiers. And you can pick up all of those books signed and personalized by us at jasoninman.com/store. And if you already have those books, we have personalized book plates for sale there as well. So I just want to mention that in case you're like, hey, these guys are cool and maybe they've written something. Let's go check it out.
We have. We are here for you. Also, get them for your friends. They're great.
Yeah, they're totally great. Okay, now it's time for the History 101.
The History 101 is the main meat of the lesson where Professor Jason is going to lay down everything you need to know about Connor Kent and why he's great.
Well, he's not called Connor Kent yet, Ashley. He's only called
Experiment 13.
He's only called. He's actually not even called Experiment 13 yet. He's only called Superboy. Now, Superboy was created by Project Cadmus using Kryptonian DNA and human DNA, and he was intended as a replacement for Superman, who died fighting Doomsday. Now, who is Doomsday, Ashley?
Doomsday is a big, scary experiment he's got points made of bones.
Yeah, close enough. He killed Superman.
Yeah.
Now, a blood sample from Lex Luthor was used as well as part of the human DNA, but it would be a long time before Connor became aware of his human donor's identity. Now, Connor was artificially aged to his mid-teens and implanted with the equivalent of a high school education. And Superboy was set free by the Newsboy Legion, which are a bunch of clones created by Jack Kirby, who kind of exists in Project Cadmus. Don't worry about them. Before he could be implanted with safeguards that were intended by Project Cadmus to control him and be able to make Connor do whatever they wanted him to do. Now, one of the boys gave Connor a leather jacket before he set out into the city, and this is where Connor led to his first encounter with a villain that was named Sidearm, who was attempting to steal money from an ATM. So that is Connor's first attempt at a supervillain, or first attempt at being a superhero. Now, I keep calling him Connor. He's not going to be called Connor for a very long time, so I probably should be stuck to calling him, I think, Superboy. We're just going to call him Superboy from here on out until he gets his name.
Okay.
Actually, in some of these early comics, he's also nicknamed, I said earlier, the Metropolis Kid. So, but before we get any further, I actually should explain Sidearm.
Sure.
Now, Ashley, do you have any idea who Sidearm is? Okay. Now, Sidearm, he's a dude with long red hair, and his superpower is he has one extra arm, and it's a cybernetic arm. It's a robot arm.
Oh, boy, I hate that.
So he has 3 arms. So he has a arm that's a sidearm. Get it?
I thought it was a gun joke.
Yep. Now, he is a gag that was created by the Carl Kessel and Tom Grummett Superboy team, and I will tell you that he keeps coming back and back and back. He's kind of like, for modern reference, like Kite Man in Tom King's modern Batman run. So this is not the last time we're going to talk about Sidearm.
Did they ever make an action figure of him?
I don't think so, and I think for good reason. So, the clone's arrival in Metropolis coincided with 3 others taking up the mantle of Superman. 2 of them, the Man of Tomorrow, which is the cyborg Superman, and the last son of Krypton, who's actually the Eradicator, insisted that they were the real Superman resurrected. While the Man of Steel, John Henry Irons, made no such claim, nor did the young clone who was open about his origin to Lois Lane, but he did insist on being called Superman and not Superboy. He soon became enamored with the reporter Tana Moon, who was granted an exclusive live interview on WGBS, a station under the direction of the unscrupulous Vinny Edge. Now, Ashley, I have to ask you here.
Yeah.
Tana Moon is somebody we're going to be talking about a lot. This is Superboy's Lois Lane.
Cool.
Now, do you have a favorite of the replacement Superman, of the 4 Superman that happened during the reign of Superman? By the way, I'm going to state this out here. There's an argument to be made that Reign of Superman, the 90s crossover that introduced all these Supermen, is quite possibly the greatest crossover of all time.
Well, we did an episode on that already.
I know. But one of them. It's one of them.
Yeah. It's certainly one of the most impactful in terms of overall continuity and the publisher's history.
Mm-hmm. But do you have a favorite of the 4 Supermen?
Steel.
Why?
He's the best because
he's my favorite, actually.
Because I really like John Henry Irons, and every time he comes back, even in a shoehorned position, I'm always very happy to see him, and he's the most different, and I really appreciate that, and I appreciate that he is someone who chose this for himself. The other 3 kind of have the Superman identity thrust upon them, but with John, it's a choice, and it's a deliberate choice to fill this void, and I think that's very laudable and very respectable.
Well, after hearing that Coast City had been destroyed, Superboy rushed to Ground Zero, where he was duped by the cyborg Superman into joining him into a mock investigation. The ruse ended in the kid's imprisonment inside Engine City, which was the War World device that Mongol and cyborg Superman used to KO Hal Jordan's hometown of Coast City. Now, eventually, the real Superman, our Clark Kent Superman, returned, and with the help of Superboy and Steel, they together defeated cyborg Superman. With the real Superman back in action, his younger clone relinquished the rights to the name and the Superman symbol, to the annoyance of Rex Leech, who was Superboy's manager and agent, who had actually copyrighted the Superman symbol during Superman's death.
Kind of like how DC copywrote it, and that's why Superman's not in the public domain.
Yes. Now, Rex Leech is a character that I won't talk a lot about, but he is integral. He is Superboy's Perry White.
Okay.
But imagine a Perry White that acts more like Quark from Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Is Superboy at this time, is he kind of a jerk and trying to be a hot ladies man?
Yes, he is. He is a total jerk. He's overpowered. He's impatient.
Yeah.
He's everything. He's the opposite of everything that Superman is.
Okay.
So, yeah, he's angry teenager guy.
Because when I think of 90s Superboy, I think a lot of his crossover with the Ray, where they're chasing chicks for like a whole section of that storyline.
A lot of Connor Kent's arc is becoming Superman.
Yeah, then he gets real sad, like in Teen Titans.
Yes, exactly. So, because of all this and because of the regular Superman coming back, Superboy decided to leave Metropolis, and he formally accepted the name Superboy. And he decided to go on a world tour, returning the apartment that he had rented in Metropolis to its original owner, Clark Kent.
A world tour doing what?
Being a superhero.
He's like Princess Margaret, just like showing up and waving at people.
That's a Crown reference for everybody. You can tell what television show we're watching right now. No sponsorship from Netflix, but maybe in the future. Just being a superhero. What superheroes do? They go on world tours.
They don't.
Looking for chicks and punching people in the face.
I mean, I guess if he has a manager, he's probably doing like, this is the 90s. He's showing up in malls and taking pictures.
Now, after a few weeks of traveling, Superboy arrived in Hawaii. That would soon become his home base and the home base of his solo comic book series run. Now, he arrived in Hawaii with Rex Leech, his manager, Roxy Leech, who is Rex's daughter, who secretly has a crush on Superboy and is an ongoing thread of the Superboy comic book series. Is it really
that secret?
It kind of is.
Okay.
It's actually a very sweet story with Roxy. We're not going to talk about Roxy that much.
That's okay.
And then also, Dublex. Now, actually,
No, I don't know what Dublex is.
you really?
No.
You do know who Dublex is.
No.
He's the Jack Kirby creation. He's a so-called DNA alien. He's a human clone.
Oh, I do know
Let me finish. He's a human clone whose DNA was modified to create an alien-looking creature with paranormal abilities. In Duplex's case, he has telepathic and telekinetic abilities. He's the gray guy with horns.
Yes, yeah.
Anybody on Young Justice knows exactly who this guy is.
I didn't know he had a name.
Yeah, Dublex. They even say it on Young Justice.
I didn't know he had a name. He's cute. They should make toys of him.
Yes, he is a longtime ally to Superboy, and I place it at the ability or the feat of this series that's the reason why Dublex is in Young Justice, and this series is the reason why Dublex is a big part of Young Justice.
I would say you're probably correct in that assertion.
To me, I look at Dublex in kind of the role that they've made Martian Manhunter on Supergirl.
Interesting.
They're the same type of character. Mm-hmm. So like Dublex is sort of his mentor.
Mentor more than on Young Justice, he's a little more of a pet.
Yeah, no. He's a mentor.
Cool.
So when he got to Hawaii, his first villain in Hawaii was, can you guess it? Sidearm.
I almost swore.
Issue 1 of Superboy.
I was like, is there a lava villain that I'm missing?
Nope.
Is this a Moana
nope.
joke?
His one and only villain, Sidearm.
Is that the Superboy Rogues Gallery is just Sidearm
Basically.
waving his 3 arms?
No, this series is going to create Superboy's Rogues Gallery. And he actually has a pretty good Rogue Gallery. But Ashley, I'm going to say, please make a note. We should definitely share a picture of Sidearm to the listeners because they need to see this guy.
Okay.
He's also very similar to the joke. If you ever read Ultimate Spider-Man, every about 10 issues, the Shocker shows up. Mm-hmm. And Brian Michael Bendis makes the Shocker a joke villain.
I think it's interesting that they chose Hawaii to be his home base. And you and I discussed this before we started recording, but at this time, they were making a real concerted effort to have characters in weirder and different. They were more spread out.
They were way more spread out,
They weren't
yes.
just all around like Metropolis or New York City.
Yeah, this was the time period that pushed Nightwing to Bloodhaven, which was basically, kind of New Jersey. This was where Starman's in Opal City, which is a brand new city that was invented.
Impulse is in Alabama.
Impulse is in Alabama. They put Wonder Woman in Motor City, which is a brand new invention. This was also the time period where they were very concentrated about Central City, Keystone City as well.
Yeah. Sister cities.
Yes. Okay, so Superboy got to Hawaii. And he soon learned that Tana Moon had also moved to Hawaii because she is a native Hawaiian.
I was going to ask because her last name is Moon,
yes.
And Silk's on the Marvel side, her name is Cindy Moon, and she is Chinese American. So I was wondering if
she's Hawaiian.
If Tana was,
Tana is
awesome.
Hawaiian. So Superboy decided to stay on the island, stylizing himself as the hero of Hawaii, and it wasn't long before Superboy started building up his own Rose Gallery, like Knockout, Silver Sword, the Insane Scavenger, and a villain that a lot of people don't realize is Superboy's villain, but has been co-opted by the Flash, King Shark.
Oh, I didn't know that, but
King Shark's first appearance.
That makes total sense.
King Shark's first appearance is in this Superboy run.
King Shark, do 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 do. King Shark,
please don't.
Do.
Now at this time,
baby listeners.
At this time, Superboy didn't have all of Superman's powers because of his half-human DNA.
Could he not fly at this time?
No, he can fly.
Okay, that's John who can't fly.
He's just missing. He's not as strong as Superman. Mm-hmm. He's not as fast as Superman, and he doesn't have heat vision or frost breath.
Right, which you mentioned in the 10-cent origin.
But with the help of Dr. Emil Hamilton, Superboy acquired a visor that simulated Superman's X-ray, heat, and infravision powers, while the scientist was also on vacation in Hawaii. Yep, because Emil Hamilton was being vexed by a certain villain. Oh, it's the villain that bewitches Superboy the most, the worst villain of all time, Sidearm. I told you he wasn't going away.
Not King Shark, but Sidearm.
Sidearm. It's also at this time that Superboy and Tana officially became a couple. Now, Ashley, at this moment, I'm going to ask you to ask me, why do I like Tana Moon?
Jason Inman, why do you like Tana Moon?
I like Tana Moon because the very first time you met her in Adventures of Superman, she questioned this Superboy as hard, if not as much as Lois Lane did, proving that this character is just whip smart and as engaged and passionate as Lois Lane, and also I love her because she's secretly his Lois Lane.
But I'm going to be honest, I've never heard of this character.
There's a reason why.
Okay. I was going to ask if you were upset that she's fallen out of continuity.
Yes.
But, okay.
Yes.
Is there a story reason?
Yes.
Okay, then I will reserve, because I was like, sometimes characters just fade away. That happens.
We
can put a pin in her for now.
There's a reason why she's not in current Superboy stories.
Okay.
I don't know if I like it.
Okay, that's fair. Well, but we're going to get to it.
We will get to it.
Okay, then we'll circle back.
I will explain. But Tana Moon is look, we're going to spend a lot of time on this original Superboy solo run. Mm-hmm. Why? Because it ran for, to be honest with you, I don't know how many issues it ran.
But also we know that after this point, he's kind of relegated to more of a team member or a support character, which happens to a lot of the sidekicks. They have a great solo series, and then they kind of don't do that much.
Well, it's a thing of like, Von
Allen's the same way.
Yeah, he pops up in Teen Titans. Mm-hmm. And then he pops up in Young Justice, but he gets a couple more solo runs later on, but none of them last past issue 15.
And this is still to this day considered to be his greatest solo series.
I think so. It ran 100 issues. This run that we're talking about right now, 100 issues.
No idea.
Yeah. 10 years.
Wow. Yeah. Wow, Connor. Good for you.
Connor had a big, long run. It ran from 94 to 2002.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
I had no idea that Superboy lasted for that long.
Yeah. So to me, it's kind of like, that's why like a majority of this stuff is coming from this run. So a special agent named Sam Makoa decided to organize a task force to go after the Silicon Dragons, which was a DC Universe Hawaiian gang. This ended up being eventually learning that this Silicon Dragons were actually Amanda Waller's Suicide Squad. Now, Superboy...
Of course they were.
Oh, no, excuse me. I'm getting this mixed up. I apologize. Sam Makoa decided to organize a task force to go after the Silicon Dragons. That task force eventually became the Suicide Squad.
Oh, okay.
I misspoke. My bad. So this ended up with Superboy being teamed up with Knockout, King Shark, Captain Boomerang, Deadshot, and our favorite, Sidearm. Now, during this mission, they destroyed the lair of the Silicon Dragons. And Superboy, though, in this mission lost his advisor during this, and most of these people died, including Sidearm. Sidearm is killed during this mission.
For real, for real?
For real, for real.
This is comics, so no one really dies.
He's going away. This is it. Sidearm is done.
Darn. Well, thank you so much for teaching the Geek History lesson on Sidearm. This was really informative. I think you did an awesome job.
I'm so happy that so many people requested this episode. Yeah. Now, after this adventure, the Legion of Superheroes arrived in the past seeking Valor. Do you know who Valor is, Ashley?
Valor is Mon-El. He's one of the Mon-El identities.
Well, yes, that is correct. Superboy then explained what happened to them and accompanied the Legion to the 30th century, where Valor was freed from the Phantom Zone and cured with an anti-lead serum with Superboy's help, and he took the name of Mon-El. Now, the Legion rewarded Superboy for his assistance by making him an honorary Legionnaire complete with a flight ring and sending him home. Now, this is the period of time where they didn't want Mon-El to be tied to the Superman family in the 90s. And also, this was the time where Superman wasn't Superboy. Superman had not met the Legion. He did not do any of this stuff. But I want to ask you, Ashley, does a Superboy always have to be connected to the Legion? Because, like if you take the most recent Legion series written by Brian Michael Bendis, Superboy is a main character. Jeff Johns retcons Superman's past with the Legion back into existence. Do you like that Superboy? Should the Legion always have a Superboy?
Not in my opinion.
Okay.
In fact, I prefer it when the Legion doesn't. I really like the Legion kind of in the vein of Legion Lost, or even the most recent cartoon series. And I know we do have a Superboy version in the cartoon, but it's called
Superman and the Legion of Superheroes.
I like the idea more that the Legion is inspired by Superman. I don't need a Superman to be on the team personally.
Okay.
How about you?
I think there does have to be a Superboy in the Legion.
Okay. What about a Supergirl?
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Because I actually like Supergirl on the team more than I like Superboy. I like her relationship with Brainiac 5
I like
a lot.
Superboy a bit more.
Okay, that's fair.
I do like Superboy a bit more. Yeah, I don't know. To me, it makes you care about the Legion a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but I guess also.
But I do like the Legion on their own. I will say that.
I guess also in the wake of how the Star Wars Skywalker saga wrapped up. I don't need everything to tie into everything all the time. Mm-hmm. So I think I like the Legion a little more that they stand on their own 18 feet instead of having to have a tie to our modern time.
Now, actually, I have another question for you.
Okay.
Did you know that Superboy had a spin-off title in the 90s?
Was it called Cute Little Demon Who Sits on My Shoulder?
What does that even mean?
I can't remember what his name is. Dublex? Was that his spin-off series? No, I didn't know he had a spin-off series.
Dublex is a grown man. He doesn't sit on.
Oh, he's not the.
Even in Young Justice, he's not the. You're mixing the characters.
Oh no,
up.
He's the one with the beard. Who's the mayor of the secret town?
I mean, he doesn't really have a beard, but sure.
Yeah, he's got facial hair in Young Justice.
Okay.
Anyway, no, I didn't know. What's it called?
It's called Superboy and the Ravers.
Oh.
And
I didn't know.
And it ran for 19 issues.
That's too many issues.
Now, let me tell you about this insane series, because this, if you're looking for party comics.
Did they just take ecstasy and go dance a lot?
Yeah, you just buckle up. Here you go. So Sparks, a fire character, invited Superboy to the Event Horizon, not the Sam Neill movie, but an intergalactic rave party exclusively for metas and aliens that was being hosted by the Kindred Marks. Now, on his first night there, Superboy met Hero Cruz and got into a fight with Calibar, for which they were teleported to a distant asteroid where Intercept, I say it like that because it's all capitalized. The CEPT is capitalized. Intercept attempted to place the two of them under arrest and also involved the Dark Stars. Now, Superboy and Caliber were transported back to the event before they could be arrested, and another brawl broke out between the Coons and some Redshift Kang and Aurora, which split into Earth. Basically, it's 19 issues of Superboy partying at this weird place called the Event Horizon, and you can read it if you want, but to be honest with you, I've always just been blown away that Superboy has a spin-off title that lasted 19 issues.
I'm going to be honest, it sounds bad.
It's all right. It's very 90s.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, while helping Dublex recover from an injury, an organization called Agenda sent Amanda Spence to kidnap Superboy. Now, Amanda Spence is the daughter of the man who ruled Cadmus, who created Superboy. The Agenda used Superboy to create an enhanced clone that they soon named Match. And they had plans of making an entire army of these Superboy Match clones. So
Superboy is a clone, and they cloned a whole bunch of him. I think that's ridiculous. But, Match is it's a more clever name than I would have given them credit for.
Well, Match because Match is that character that shows up a lot later.
Yes.
In Teen Titans.
Yes.
He's in Teen Titans like several times.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. I don't know. Your reaction to that was like, what are you talking about?
Well, but I'm just thinking about him in sort of the overall. Anyway, continue.
Okay. But eventually, Superboy and Tana break up.
Why, Jason?
Yeah, they just do. She moves on.
Because they're 16. That's why.
Well, no, actually, she's older than he is. He's like 18 and she's like, I think 20 or 21.
Dang.
Yeah.
So she's like, well, my mama was telling me not to date a younger man, so goodbye, Connor.
Basically. Now, Superboy decides to travel a bit to clear his head, and he stops by Jersey City and asks Natasha Irons, Steele's niece, out on a date. Now, Natasha has fun on this date, but she tells him eventually she's not that interested because she can tell that he's still very much in love with Tana.
So this is before they made her queer.
Yes. Yes.
Which modern.
Although, if you want to retcon a little bit, you can say that, maybe she went on the date to kind of like be nice to him, but she had no intentions of it going anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, or it could be the same, and she could date men and women.
But no,
people could date multitudes.
No, Natasha didn't become LGBTQ until quite a ways down the road.
Modern concept.
Soon, Superboy became a founding member of a team called Young Justice.
Hey!
Along with Robin and Impulse, and the team formed after the three boys decided to have a camp out in the old JLA Justice Cave in Happy Harbor. There they encountered Red Tornado, and despite having some persistent troubles with each other, Superboy, Robin, Tim Drake, and Impulse, Bart Allen, became best friends during this time. Now, Ashley, we talked about this a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
What are a couple other names that Superboy goes by? Because right now I'm just calling him Superboy, but at the beginning of this episode, we were calling him something else.
Kon-El?
Yes, and then what's
Superman?
No. And then what's the other name he goes by?
It's Experiment 13.
No. Connor.
Section 31.
Connor, good Lord.
Connor.
You're going like 50 miles away.
You phrased it like you were trying to trick me.
No, I was trying to bring you into the episode here.
Look, I learned what I had to do about Connor for the Young Justice episode and then deleted the rest. Yes.
Have you ever wondered how we got those names?
Literally never.
He's just called Superboy.
Literally never.
Oh, really? You're just like...
I thought they called him Kon-El because it sounded kind of like Kal-El, and then I thought then Connor. Like I've never thought about it. I've literally never thought about it.
So eventually, this is the story. Superboy goes back to work for Cadmus, the organization that made him, and Superman drops by Cadmus and asks Superboy to come with him to the Fortress of Solitude. While there, Superboy visits Krypton via a virtual reality machine, and Superman explains how he considers Superboy to be a part of his Superman family. Now, Superman offers him the Kryptonian name of Kon-El, and Superboy tearfully accepts it, overjoyed with the simple joy of having a real name. Now, eventually, some of his friends, the Young Justice friends, would take Kon-El and turn it into Connor.
There's a big thing in Young Justice, and you can go and listen to our Young Justice episode if you want to know more, but there's a big point of it of whether or not some characters share their names or not. Like Tim never tells them his name until almost the end of the series. And then like Secret doesn't have a name, so they have to give her a name. So very fitting that is when Connor becomes Connor.
Now, he's not Connor Kent yet.
No, that doesn't happen until...
We'll get to it.
Later.
Ashley, do you know what hyper time is?
No. Fast time.
No. Hyper time!
Oh, boy.
Oh, yes. Hyper time is the vast interconnected web of parallel timelines which comprise all of reality. It is believed to be the greatest secret in all creation. The possibilities of hyper time are infinite and humble the power of any man.
It's really nice that Matt Berry could join us for that. And also, that's called M Theory.
Yes. No, actually, it's Mark Waid's 90s comic book explanation to say that everything that ever happened so that we could revisit the multiverse post Crisis on Infinite Earths, even though all the multiverse was destroyed by the Anti-Monitor.
It's smart. It's also kind of the same philosophy that Grant Morrison embraces, that like everything happened and it's all valid.
Well, I will tell you this. DC really, really, really tried to make hyper time a thing in the late 90s. They failed stunningly. They tried to shove it down comic book readers' throats. And I'll even tell you this. I think the concept of hyper time is a cool concept, and I wish they would have kept it. But they sure bungled it hard. They bungled it so bad that people were like, we don't accept this.
That's so interesting because, the Speed Force kind of went over really well. And this feels very much, obviously, Mark Waid, the architect of both, but this kind of feels like that same sort of thing.
Yeah,
So it's interesting that this one didn't take off,
and that's
why it's not part of continuity anymore.
Yeah, there are mentions to hypertime here and there, which I think is funny, but hypertime is basically ignored now.
I'm also going to contend that I think part of the reason that it didn't catch is because the name doesn't tell you what it is.
Nope.
The Speed Force kind of implies what it is. Hypertime to me sounds like how they use warp technology in Star Wars, rather.
Yeah. Now, Superboy was one of the first DC characters to explore hypertime.
Of course.
After a Superboy from an alternate reality arrived at the JLA Watchtower, dying shortly thereafter from his injuries. During the hypertime trip and his experiences, this is when Connor learned that Superman is Clark Kent. Now, Superboy did not reveal that he knew Clark Kent's secret identity at first, and he actually harbored a little shock and resentment that his closest relative never told him that he had a secret identity.
Yeah, well, you know who else does that? The Flashes. They also don't tell their direct descendants that they're the Flash while they are the Flash being their mentor.
Now, shortly after this, Superboy decides to visit Smallville, specifically dropping by the Kent's farm, and Clark Kent arrives there too, and Superboy hints around that he knows Clark Kent's secret. Now, this is a very funny Ed McGuinness drawn issue during the Jeff Loeb run that I think is quite hilarious. Now, Clark is reluctant to come out with it too and say that he's Superman, not because he doesn't trust the kid, but he's afraid that eventually Superman and Clark Kent may like no longer be distinguishable. He was very concerned about keeping those parts of his life's secret. Still, he does hint back to Superboy that he knows the kid knows him while teaching Connor how to milk a cow.
Okay.
Now, this doesn't satisfy Connor. And eventually Connor's still frustrated. And so he heads to Metropolis and he asks to meet up with Lois Lane. And while the Man of Steel is battling a four-armed monster down the street.
Called Sidearm.
Yeah. Superboy is still unable to come out to Superman that he knows. But he is comforted when Superman tells him that of all the people to wear the S-Shield, Superboy is the one that Superman feels the closest to. After he leaves, Superboy hints to Lois that he knows the identity, basically tells Lois, he's like, I know that Clark Kent is Superman. And Lois merely replies that everyone, even Superman, needs a little privacy in their life.
Says the woman who made it her mission to uncover his secret identity.
Yeah. Now, actually, I want to talk about this a little bit. I want to talk about Superman and Superboy's relationship here.
Okay.
Is Superman right to not tell Superboy who he is? Because this is something that the Young Justice cartoon spends a lot of time on. And in the Young Justice cartoon,
Superman's a dick.
We talk about that Superman is a dick. Now, I understand Superman's perspective on this because Superman is like, well, I didn't ask to be cloned. And then you just show up and you want this relationship from me. But a little bit of Superman can look at that kid and be like, well, that's like my thumb that was cut off. And now it's talking to me. But for Superboy, it's like, dude, we're brothers. We're like identical twins.
Do you think, this is a little off tangent, but I promise it's going to come back around. Do you think Superman views Superboy more as a son or more as a brother?
Brother.
Okay. Interesting. It's my opinion, and I do spend a lot of time thinking about legacy characters, that if you are going to have a sidekick, the best way that you can protect them is to be as honest as possible. And I believe the same thing about adults' relationship with children or with younger people. So I think Superboy deserves to know.
Interesting. Even though this is considered, you almost could consider Clark Kent's secret identity the greatest secret in the DC universe.
I can, but especially he is a clone. He is, he's like a half a Xerox of you. And I think, especially in a world where you have such godlike powers, for lack of a better phrase, and you are trying to implant on this person, because Connor's kind of a dick too in a lot of his incarnations. So, but
I'm willing to give Connor the benefit of the doubt because he's a teenager.
Yes, and he spends a lot of time without proper guidance. So if you are trying to step in and be that guiding light and that beacon, I think ultimately it all starts with honesty. And it's my same issue, like I mentioned the Flashes earlier. Like Barry doesn't tell Wally right away that he's the Flash, and then Wally doesn't tell Bart right away that he's the Flash. And I'm like, why? I don't see the point. I don't see what the secret gains you besides a certain level of anonymity. I think being open. I think Batman actually does it the best. Well,
it is one of those things where, like, if Superman had stepped in and actually trained this kid, he probably wouldn't have been a dick.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But I understand too, if you're looking to build conflict into your ongoing narrative and you're doing a 100-issue run of Superboy, I do understand why you obscure the identity for a bit. But if I'm entertaining the thought experiment that these might be real people, I think he should have told him.
Interesting. Well, that's also going to lead us into the action figure spotlight this week, which we don't. It's a segment that we don't do every single time, but when I remember it, the DC Universe Classics Superboy, and I'm bringing this up because Connor's going to change his costume soon. But the DC Universe Classics, if you don't know what that is, it is quite possibly the greatest action figure line of all time, and they had the classic original costume of Superboy with his John Lennon glasses and his leather jacket and his little thigh utility belt.
Do you have this action figure?
I don't. I want it. I've seen it at a couple shows, a couple Comic-Cons, and it's always overpriced. I think because everybody wants it.
Well, if someone has one they want to unload, send it to our PO
DC Universe Classic Superboy. This is like a holy grail action figure for me.
Interesting.
Yeah, I really want it. So eventually, Superboy gets into a very difficult time when he loses his powers. And then he loses Tana Moon. Tana Moon is killed by, I mentioned her earlier, Amanda Spence, the daughter of Paul Westfield, the head of Cadmus, who kind of kills Tana in a story that is not really great and not really interesting. So Tana kind of...
And she's never been resurrected?
And she's never been, as far to my knowledge, she has never been resurrected.
Interesting.
But it's kind of the end of the Superboy solo series where Tana goes out. And he kind of... there's a lot of sad scenes with him at her gravestone. She sort of is similar to Alex for Kyle Rayner. Whereas like this woman who really affects his life, but is no longer around. I think Tana Moon should still be around. I really do. I think that...
Well, and we've had enough reboots since then that she could have easily just... Yeah. She's alive and in continuity now.
I feel like, because again, Tana Moon to me is Superboy's Lois Lane. Tana Moon is also kind of like when Linda Park is to Wally West. Like, it's very important.
It would be so easy to bring her back in a modern context, too, because if you re-embrace the idea that Superboy wants to be famous, you should have, like... Kind of like what they tried to do with Iris on The Flash, and then they walked it back because now she owns a newspaper, where she should have like a YouTube channel or a blog where she's just promoting Superboy. I
mean, I'll tell you this. If I had my druthers and I got to write Superboy for DC, I would take him right back to Hawaii.
Why not?
And I would bring back Tana Moon. I would like update her for the new time. But yeah, like totally. Superboy should be in Hawaii. It's like really cool. He's flying through the forest.
Yeah. And then you could take a trip to Hawaii as a research.
He could be the hero of, let's say, the Pacific.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is something, that would...
that we've never seen before.
Yeah. And I would have him surf with Aquaman.
That's silly. Also, Aquaman traditionally based in the Atlantic.
Yeah, I know, but Aquaman can go anywhere, right? So eventually, Cadmus shuts down, and Wonder Girl insists that Superboy leaves Young Justice HQ, which is where he had been living after Tana's death, and Superboy relocates to Metropolis, becoming the Super at a tenement building named the Calvin Gardens. Now, eventually that tenement building was blown up by a villain, and Superman offered Kon-El a place to stay in Smallville with his parents.
I love this idea.
Yes. And then this is when we get into the Teen Titans Jeff Johns run, where now Connor is given a civilian identity as Clark Kent's cousin, Connor Kent. And Superboy is asked by Superman to accept Cyborg's invitation to join a new incarnation of the Teen Titans with his former Young Justice teammates, Robin, Impulse, and Wonder Girl.
He's also given glasses with his secret identity for the first time. That's a really great scene.
And this is where the t-shirt and jeans Superboy costume that I go back and forth on. I like and I don't like at the same time.
It's not a costume.
Yep. So it is during this run that is revealed that Superboy is actually a hybrid clone created from 50% Kryptonian and 50% human DNA. Now, at the time, he thought it was Westfield's DNA, but this is where it is talked about that is the DNA of Lex Luthor.
Yeah, it's a really, the scene where it gets revealed is really cool.
It's an interesting retcon that I actually think adds to the character.
I think it has a level of complexity to him, and it actually kind of backward retcon explains a lot about him.
Now, during his time with the Teen Titans, his Kryptonian power started to manifest fully because he was getting older.
Yes.
And he eventually struggled with controlling them, getting his freeze breath and his heat vision.
I remember that scene.
Basically becoming Superman full on. And it was during Connor Kent's and Cassie. Who's Cassie, Ashley?
Cassie Sandsmark is the greatest Wonder Girl that ever wondered.
Yes. Now, during their first date, Connor was sucked into a time portal in the 31st century, and there he was mistaken for being a young Clark Kent. I mean, he's Clark Kent's clone.
He looks like Clark Kent.
And he was made a member of the Legion of Superheroes, and he lived in the 31st century for 6 months, becoming Superman.
Yes.
This story also previously ignored the 2 other times that Connor met the Legion of Superheroes. You might be asking, why did they? Because remember earlier I said he got a Legion flight ring. You want to know why it ignored it? Because by this time the Legion had been rebooted twice.
Well, I was going to say, 1, because Jeff Johns can do whatever he wants, and 2, because the Legions... We've covered a lot of characters with complicated histories and a lot of big reboots, and there's a reason that we haven't covered the Legion yet, because it's insane. It's Legion history is wild.
The original Legion that Connor met was the 90s Mark Waid Legion, the Archie Legion, as some people call it. It is one of my favorite Legions. Now, this Legion that he encounters is, I think it's the Jeff Johns kind of
would have made sense
original Legion, which by this time the Archie Legion had been rebooted into like sort of the angry adult Mark Waid Legion. And then that was rebooted into, oh no, we're back to the original Legion again.
Well, because that's what Jeff does.
So anyways, then Infinite Crisis happens. Ashley, what's that?
That's the one where Superboy Prime comes back and punches a hole in the universe.
That is correct. Now, during that event, Connor answered a signal from Nightwing at Titan's Tower, and the two of them went solo in some of the best scenes in Infinite Crisis, the two kind of main sidekicks to the big hero, the big two.
Yeah, they're a version of the world's finest.
Mm-hmm. The two went to Alexander Luthor's base hidden away in Superman's original Fortress of Solitude in Antarctica, and at the center of this base was the corpse of the Anti-Monitor.
What?
Who's the Anti-Monitor, Ashley?
The Anti-Monitor is the antagonist to Crisis on Infinite Earth.
Yes, he's the one who destroyed the multiverse.
Also, if you want to hear more about that, check out our Crisis Club series.
Yeah. Now, there at the corpse of the Anti-Monitor, Superboy fought Superboy Prime, who was a Superboy from an alternate dimension who was evil. Now, despite being overpowered, Superboy was able to defeat Superboy Prime by hurling him into the Anti-Monitor tower, and single-handedly, our Superboy put a stop to Alexander's grand scheme, and the valiant effort cost him his life.
He died, and then Tim Drake changed his costume.
Yes, Tim Drake changed his costume. How? Please explain that to the listeners.
So the OG Tim Drake costume, after he's been wearing Jason and Dick's costumes for a little bit,
red and green,
is it's basically the classic Robin costume with green pants. And then after Connor dies, it becomes the red and black design that is later kind of lifted for the Batman the Animated Series Tim design. It's Jason's favorite Tim Drake costume is the red and black.
It is. It was also set up in 52.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Now, I would say the lesson is over, but it's not, because then Legion of Three Worlds happens. And in order to stop Superboy Prime's rampage in the future, because he's back, Brainiac 5 of the Legion of Superheroes sends Starman to the past to unearth Kon-El's corpse and put it in the same regeneration chamber that resurrected Superman during the death of Superman. However,
that's actually kind of nice because he sort of came out of that. Okay.
However, because of the severity of the damage from Superboy Prime, Kon-El's healing process is going to take 1,000 years to complete.
But Jason, that's so many years.
But luckily, that ends up being the 31st century when this story is taking place, and ding, like a hot bun out of the oven, here comes Superboy back, and he helps defeat Superboy Prime in the future, and then he gets to return to the 21st century.
Ding, Con is done. Ding, Con is done.
That's pretty much it, yeah. Now, Connor comes back to the 21st century. He settles back into his life in Smallville, and he returns to live with Martha Kent, who at this time is thrilled to take the young boy in, because at this time in continuity, when Connor was dead, Jonathan Kent died of a heart attack.
Very sad. Very sad.
Now, Connor returns to Smallville High School. He gets his own supporting cast, and it's amazing. I do not want to tell you too much about this because this is the Jeff Lemire Superboy story that runs for like 12 issues. It's about small town Smallville. It's about a new Luthor. It's about a new sister to Lana Lang. And it's about Superboy getting his own Smallville adventures. And I highly, highly recommend it.
Is this perhaps a, shall we say, a sneak peek at what might be in our recommended reading coming up in a little bit towards the end of the episode? Or is it just something that you would recommend to the listeners?
No, it is something that would be recommended on my recommended reading.
Cool.
So then, Ashley, the new 52 happens. And what's that?
Barry Allen missed his mom, so he ran back in time and reset everything. And everyone had only been a superhero for 5 years, except the ones that Jeff Johns was writing. And everyone got more lines on their costumes.
Yeah, so Superboy is completely rebooted in the new 52. And he's given a suit that looks like it came out of Tron. And in the new 52 universe, he's still a clone. But he's a project created by Nowhere, which, of course, is an anagram for what? I don't care. An organization that is attempting to control the new generation of metahumans. Basically, the only new interesting thing here about this Superboy is that this Superboy is 45% Kryptonian, 45% human, and 10% unknown race.
I don't like that.
And
that's having not read this series, that's my immediate reaction.
Well,
to
I will
that.
say to you as someone who has read a good chunk of this series, you're not missing anything, and that's why that's all we're going to talk about it.
How do you feel about his Tron costume?
It's okay.
Because I know it's a pretty divisive costume change from a t-shirt.
I don't mind it.
Okay.
I don't hate it. It's not the 90s costume is still the best. Then DC Rebirth happened. Ashley, what's that?
So Wally West came back to life and kind of soft reset everything. So now everything is in continuity.
Pretty much. And Superboy, basically in Wonder Comics, gets rebooted back to where he was before the New 52.
Yeah, so does Tim Drake.
And they kind of just say like, oh, we had just forgotten about Superboy.
He was asleep.
Well, no, actually what happened is that after destroying a lab, suspecting them of foul play, Superboy got sucked into a portal to the DC Comics dimension of Gem World, where Amethyst is from.
Oh, yeah.
There he helps a woman and her child from being harassed from the men who killed her husband. And as gratitude, she helped mask him with an identity in Gem World, because if Gem World found out that he was just a DC comic hero, they would have killed him. Mm-hmm. So in return for her help, he helped her out on the farm. Then this new reformed Young Justice team arrived in Gem World. They were attacked by soldiers, and Connor reunited with them all and helped defeated the Dark Opal, and he officially joins the team and leaves Gem World for good. And that's basically where we are. Connor's back, and he sort of has a version of his 90s costume back again, which is really, really great.
Yeah, the art on that Young Justice series is out of this world.
Yeah. Now, I want to say, if you do want Superboy, this is the end of the lesson here, but if you want more Superboy, I recommend that you go to our Patreon, which is patreon.com/Jawiin, Jawiin, Jawiin, like everything else, because there we do a supplementary podcast to every episode of Geek History Lesson called Geek History Lesson Extra. This week, we're going to talk about who's the best Superboy. Dun, dun, dun. We're going to debate this because there are a lot of different Superboys. Actually, there are Superboys out there that I bet you don't even know about.
Yep, but I have a firm belief in who I think is the best one.
Sure. That's the place if you want to hear that podcast, and your support helps keep this podcast going. So we've always wanted to do more podcasts, and Patreon's the way that we make that happen. And so thank you to all the patrons that help support us over there. And if you want to hear our discussion on who's the best Superboy, patreon.com/Jawiin is where you're going to find it. All right, so now we're going to go into recommended reading. What's that, Ashley?
That is where, if you still want even more Superboy after you've listened to this lesson and after you've listened to the extra, you go to geekhistorylesson.com/recommended reading. You click on the little widgets, and you get yourself some stories that Professor Jason thinks are your next best steps.
Yeah, we get a lot of people online. I don't know what, like I was going to say, like, online
on
at a supermarket, who ask us, hey, what are some good Hal Jordan stories? Or, hey, what are some good Black Panther stories? I will tell you, everybody out there, if you're interested in that type of stuff, geekhistorylesson.com/recommended reading has literally all the recommended reading for every episode we've done.
You can literally Google Geek History Lesson recommended reading, whatever topic you are interested in. Mm-hmm. We have even episodes where we didn't necessarily have a recommended reading section. We have supplemented in more material that you can look at.
Now, I know you might have to scroll through a lot of that stuff. Sorry, we're not website builders.
Yeah. Or, again, if you Google it, it'll take you right to the page result if you don't want to scroll.
All right, my number one choice is Superboy Smallville Attacks. That is the Jeff Lemire run. It is the entirety of the run. It is the best Superboy story. It's so, so good. My second pick is Superboy Book 1, Trouble in Paradise. This is the first 11 issues of the Carl Kessel Tom Grummett run, the one I talked about the most, Tana Moon, Superboy in Hawaii, King Shark, and our favorite, Sidearm.
I just want someone to draw you as Sidearm.
I'll have to show you a picture of Sidearm.
But I want your third arm to be like Intern Brega.
And please go buy that one, because I don't think DC Direct is going to make a Superboy Book 2, and that's a shame.
Okay.
They probably never will collect all 100 of those issues, and that's sad.
Well, alas, poor 90s comics.
Yeah. And then the third is Superman, Reign of the Supermen. Of course, the trade where Connor first shows up. And there's some great, great stories in there at that point.
Yes, a staple of our recommended reading. We've recommended that a couple times.
Of course. All right, Ashley. And now we're going to move into the honor roll, which is the last section of our podcast. What's that?
It is. It's where if you go to Apple Podcasts, I believe is what it's called now, and you give us a 5-star review, we will read whatever you have to say. And if you're an international person and you want to be a part of this as well, take a screenshot of your review and email it to geekhistorylesson@gmail.com. You're helping us in the algorithm. You're helping more geeks enroll in the Mind University, and we love you for it, so we want to shout you out.
Yeah, right here joining the honor roll today is Jack519, who says, I think I stumbled across this podcast a year or so ago when they were doing the history of Kate Bishop and interviewed Kelly Thompson, who is one of my favorite writers going today. Since then, I've listened to dozens of episodes, and I'm always entertained and learning something new. I appreciate how hardworking Ashley and Jason are, and it shows up in the quality of the content. If you like comics and pop culture, this is a great bet. Thank you, Jack. The next person to join the honor roll is Rent Narb Studio Comics. Rent Narb, I believe, who says, hey, I love your show and listen to it on Stitcher. Oh, I like Stitcher. But I have one beef, and that is that you have not done your entertaining banter on my favorite character, Jamie Madrox. And there have been some great multiple man stories, and there is almost a TV show, but I've lost what is happening on that one. Keep up the great work, Gary Brantner of Rent Narb Studio Comics. All right, well, Gary, I assume we'll eventually get to multiple man. I like Jamie Madrox. I think he's a cool character, and he does have some good runs. So there you go.
Cool.
And lastly, Munch Matt, who says, these two are amazing. I love listening to them in the car, on a walk, just about anywhere. I especially love the top episodes. They got me to finally get around to giving them their well-deserved 5 stars. So thank you to Jack519. Thank you to Rent Narb Studio Comics. And thank you to Munch Matt for joining the honor roll. Welcome to the Teacher's Lounge. We're going to give you keys. And in the corner, don't touch the pinball machine.
Why not?
Because that belongs to Mr. Sweeney.
What does Mr. Sweeney teach?
He teaches advanced Warren Ellis literature.
That's a great choice.
So head on over to Apple Podcasts. Don't forget, guys, you can subscribe and download and listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, which is a big place you can listen to us, and also Stitcher and any other places that you can find. Oh, by the way, if you want us on a certain podcast streaming service and we're not on it, let us know. We just don't know about it, but we'll get on there.
We are totally open to more avenues to scream at you about comics.
Yeah. Ashley, where can they follow us on social media?
You can follow the podcast at geekhistorylesson.com, facebook.com/geekhistorylesson, or on Twitter at GHL Podcast. We do read literally everything that you write to us, and we try our best to answer.
Don't forget to follow us as well. Follow me on Twitter at Jawiin and Instagram at Jawiin. That's Jawiin. And follow Ashley on Twitter and Instagram at Ashley V. Robinson. Now at the very end, hashtag stick around. Ashley.
Jason.
Now I want you to be objective here.
Okay.
And I want you to think about this even outside of the idea of, I know who your favorite Superboy is.
Uh-huh.
So I want you to think about this. What's the best Superboy costume? Now, also counted to this is the Clark Kent original Superboy costume, which is just Superman's costume. There's the Jonathan Kent Superboy costume.
It's easy. For me, there's no question. It's the 90s design.
Is it really the leather jacket
Absolutely.
and the hip
100%.
pocket?
100%. And here's another hot take I have about that costume.
That's my opinion.
That costume looks better on a woman.
Yes, it does.
I have never seen, I see a lot of women wear this at different conventions. I've never seen a woman in this costume that I didn't think was incredibly attractive.
Oh, yeah.
So
very hot.
Kind of like the Nightwing suit. I think it looks better on girls. And I think that's kind of what I like about it. It's something I really liked actually about the way Superboy was portrayed in the Reign of Superman movie. Mm-hmm. It's a little feminizing.
Yeah.
And it makes him seem smaller and more fey.
I thought he was a lot of fun in the animated movie, how tiny they drew him.
Yeah, and he was a real piece of work.
He's a real ass. Yeah.
But it was sort of charming in that context. But I like that it makes him seem smaller and more delicate. Mm-hmm. But he's still as strong or comparably strong to the other Superman. And the image of that is very interesting. But to me, without a question, and you know Connor's not my favorite Superboy, but that's my favorite costume. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a good pick because it's the right one. Well, there is no right pick, but there you go. All right. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Geek History Lesson. I am Jason, the Leather Jacket is Best Inman.
I am Ashley Victoria Robinson. And Professor Jason, will you please dismiss the class?
Class is dismissed to hyper time.